And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is William Spanier, who during his near-death experience went to an in-between space with a whole bunch of people. William, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
William, let's start on the day that you had your NDE and go from there.
Yes, there was a car accident and it was in a pickup truck. I was in the passenger seat and it barrel rolled because the tires were bald and trying to take a sharp turn. So it barrel rolled like 6-7 times, ended up on somebody's front lawn. And then when it stopped rolling, the two people I was in the truck with noticed that I was no longer in the truck. So as it rolled, I flew out the window on the concrete. So when they got their comprehension back, they looked and saw me laying in the middle of the road, not moving. And they just figured like we should wait for the ambulance, and they couldn't get me to move or anything. And then, so when it happened, where I went was to in between space in which there were many people there that knew who I was, but I didn't recognize them. And they just told me that I could stay and life would be difficult, but I would advance, I would do well with what I'm supposed to do in this lifetime, or I could start over and it would be easier. And I was very emotional, and I just said, send me back, yelling all this stuff. So I was sent back, and then as the story goes, because I didn't witness this because I had a big head trauma. I have a very large scar on the back of my head. As the story goes from them, what happened was I stood up really fast, suddenly, and then I just started walking into somebody's backyard, and then all these people came out of their homes after the barrel roll of the truck. This is at night. It was very loud, so they came out of there. It was in a community, and they just told me that I needed to wait for the ambulance because I was in an accident. And I looked at them, and I was like, accident? It wasn't any accident. And then I just continued to walk until like a bunch of people stopped me and like made me stay. And so that happened, and after that, I started having a lot of involuntary out-of-body experiences. And then I learned that you could do it on purpose after that, and I started doing it on purpose. And this came from reading from a lot of people that were already doing it, and I didn't know that you could. There used to be a group called the Astral Society on the internet where they would share these things. But also authors like Robert Monroe and Robert Bruce. A lot of people know Robert Monroe because of the Monroe Institute, and he used his tech to do it, but he can do it without tech, or he was able to at the time he was alive. And Robert Bruce was a friend and mentor of mine for quite a while, but he was a hero of mine first, and he taught me some stuff. So I've learned a lot of technique, and I've been having them ever since. I've learned a lot of tricks about it and how to be more mature when you leave the body, and to do things that can speed up your own evolution. Because a lot of things that you read about in books, or they practice in yoga, or different Vedic practices, Hindu, things like this, a lot of it's meant to do while in energetic form. And they do say it, but not in plain English. But once you've done this enough times, you start to realize, oh, I was supposed to practice this in energetic form. But you can do it in physical, but it takes longer. So, and that's something that you learn over time. But yeah, that was my near-death experience, and it changed my entire life.
Well, let's unpack it a little bit. When you say this was an in-between space, what did it look like, and what do you mean by that?
So yeah, there is different types of in-between spaces. This particular one was just a place where you can say guides are just there waiting for the event to happen, and like so they're getting to my level as I'm there on this step up level in order to for us all to interact together. And there are ways there are in between spaces that are more like a purgatory type of space, but this is not one of them. This is just kind of like a review session or something. Like, what do you want to do? Like, here we are. And in some cases, like you previously discuss it, and now it's happening. What do you want to do? And so there was a choice.
So were you like in a room, like an office room, or were you like in the white light or in the black void, or what did you physically see? I mean, well, I guess not physically, energetically.
I mean, it was lighter colored, I guess, and there's just like a half moon of people standing there, just like looking at me, and I'm just kind of confused on what is going on. Definitely not a black void. Uh, just yeah, it was lightly colored, and I couldn't make out anything that would be considered physical space.
From what you're saying, it sounds like the guides were there waiting for you. So do you think that this car accident was pre-planned in some way?
I assume, but like a lot of these things are pre-planned, and they were waiting, but at the same time, like time doesn't really exist to them, so um, it could just all happen in an instant. Like, oh, this is one possibility of 2000 or something, and this one happened. Okay, now let's all convene and like talk to them, type of thing. Like that possibility occurred. Now let's figure it out.
What did your guides look like?
Yeah, I don't know, between not that young, between like 40s and 60s, and um, just yeah, older than me at the time, and then just concerned or curious.
But they did look human?
Yes.
Were they in like regular street clothes of today or in robes or?
I guess robes, but I don't normally think about it like that. They were in garments that were not street clothes and not dark, but lightly colored.
Did they take you through a life review?
No, it was very fast.
Hmm.
It was this is what's happening. What do you want to do? And then I said what I wanted to do, and that was it. And then I was back.
You said there was a whole bunch of people there. So were they all your guides, or perhaps were some of them like people you knew from past lives or family members?
I'm not sure. I would say it's probably a hodgepodge of things. Um, I've been in situations where I've been my own guide, right? Like it happens fairly often. The first out of body experience that I ever had on purpose, I walked into my living room at the time, and I saw three people standing at attention, along with one person with his back to me, and I was like hyperventilating, like I could feel my physical body at the same time, and I asked the question that most people do, like, "Are you my guides?" Because everybody wants to meet their guides and tell me everything. So I asked him, "Are you my guides?" And then the person with his back to me turned around and said yes. And then as soon as that happened, I was back in my body, right? So fast forward uh, 7 years or so, 7 years. When was that? I was in a channeling class in Chicago, and we went to the point where we were having our guide take us somewhere. It was like an out of body experience happened, and my guide took me to that moment when I first had my first out of body experience on purpose. And I came into the living room and I watched myself walk in, and then watched myself ask me if I was my guide, and then I answered yes to myself, and then that situation was over. So pretty often it's a lot more confusing. It's difficult to answer that question um, in terms of lifetimes and who they were to you previously. Uh, but at the time, I didn't recognize anyone.
It kind of sounds like to me that sometimes when you see yourself as your guide, perhaps are you being your higher self at that point?
Mhm. And I've had moments, many where I've gone back and helped myself, and but a lot of times I'm being ushered by somebody else to help myself. So people talk about, I talked about this recently. We talked about soul retrieval and how you pick up the pieces of what you've left behind um, in the lifetime. And a lot of times, soul retrieval comes from helping other people move on. And so you pick up more bits of yourself, helping other people move on to the next level. And a lot of times, that's you doing it for yourself in this lifetime, and then maybe a version of yourself several lifetimes up the road, helping you in this lifetime, help you earlier in this lifetime.
Mm.
So it's the way time works is very weird.
Would you say then that everything happens at the same time, past, present, and future?
Yeah, it seems like more of a blob than anything. Like time is more of a blob. Um, it's hard to fully explain, and a lot of people like to do that. They like to try to figure it out. I would say yes, they all simultaneously exist, sure. Um, but it seems like it's still, in a way, like oversimplistic.
Before this NDE, were you into any of this stuff?
I had a healthy ghost curiosity, and I was certainly able to do things like lucid dream pretty well. And if you practice lucid dreaming and you can have out of body experiences, there is a crossover between them, but you have to be able to do both. Uh, they're different. Like one's subconsciously, like you're in a subconscious world and like place, and the other one they have some fixed areas. Like there's some out of body places and astral places that are fixed, and then there's some that aren't. They're flowy. And lucid dreaming is like flowy. It's not. So those two things are not the same, but they have some crossover.
Earlier, you spoke about being mature while being outside of your body. And I'm not really clear on that. So, did
Yeah,
you become more mature after doing it for a while? And if so, what would it be like doing something outside of your body while being immature?
yeah. Flying, like immediately trying to get out of your house if you're close to the physical. Um, Asking immature questions. Um, uh,
Like
Trying
what?
to like expecting guides and teachers that you meet in the out of body form to tell you like future events and things like that, because that's just a waste of time, and you should just be working on how to evolve your energetic body as quickly as possible and to answer questions for yourself. So that's a lot more important. Like even asking the question like, "Are you my guide?" is like silly. Something could just say yes and actually not be true.
When they asked you if you wanted to start over, would you relive this life again? Like go back in time, or would you just kind of repeat the life,
No, it
going
would
forward?
it would be a next life, but
Like,
still with the same lessons and that haven't been realized, and like going through certain emotions. A lot of times people don't understand that lessons are a complicated emotional eventuality that you have to feel in order to fulfill like something that you're supposed to do. It's not necessarily like, go left instead of right type of thing. It's like feel this complex set of emotions and then like you've done your work. And that could be 10 different events happening at once to feel one emotion. So, but to be more mature while out of body is to practice things that make you evolve, and to be immature would be to just fly around and not do things that are fun and maybe go visit people or something, things like that.
so is that the whole point of incarnating, is to come here and learn lessons and experience emotions?
It seems to be the case.
Is there
And
an end? I'm sorry, go ahead.
is there an end?
Yeah.
Uh, Man, way down the road.
Mm.
Uh, One thing that I was thinking about earlier was how one of the eventualities is to, like, Earth will end up being a lot less populated place, it seems, and it'll be treated more of like a zoo or botanical garden. And then, like, and some people will be here, but it'll be way less populated. And then, but people will be living off planet, and they come and they visit, stuff like that. Um, but that's already happening. It's already happened, and but it's just further down the line. It seems like there's going to be a lot less people here, and so, like, it's way in the future though. Whether it ever ends, I don't know. Do you want it to end? Like, would you want to be a part of a whole completely and not feel even less of being an individual? It seems like the answer would be no. You want to have your individuality, but the more you do connect with many different versions of yourself, you do get comfortable with it. So maybe it's just, yeah, it's steps, and you ultimately have a certain calmness and, like, serenity about being all these things at once and losing yourself. But if it ever ends, I don't know.
How do you leave your body?
Uh, Technique, being relaxed, and there's a lot of different things that you can do to kind of initiate the experience. That's why a lot of people, like Robert Bruce, he wrote Astral Dynamics. He's dead now though. He just went into lots of techniques, stretching your awareness out, like from one side of the room to the next, or pulling yourself, like, you have to actually try the feeling of pulling yourself out of your body as if you're climbing a rope. And even though you can't, like I'm saying, like, without moving your arms, but, like, it seems that you can't do that. That's impossible. But if you try to do it, you might subconsciously do it when you're really, really relaxed. And then that can initiate an out of body experience. And there's a lot of techniques like that. But, like, I talked about this recently again. You practicing these techniques makes your higher self or your future self or whatever, whoever's giving you permission to do things, they see what you're doing, and through that they can give permission for you to do it. Like, a lot of times it doesn't come just because you really, really want it. It comes because, like, you're practicing things that let higher versions of yourself know that you're not just some stupid monkey. Like, and then when the previous versions of yourself advance, it also advances the way future versions of yourself. So everybody wins. But you have to do it. You have to try. And there's something to be said about um, believing or knowing that it's your time and you deserve this, and, like, nobody's gonna tell you no, and that gets recognition, and not just from, like, non-physical or future helpers, but also teachers in this life. Like, they want you to go out and grab it, and feel that you're worthy. That and Of course, a teacher that has a lot more experience than you wants to be respected, but they also want you to feel as if you're their equal, like you're, what's the term? Like, you're both colleagues, and through that, they give you more permissions, and they might teach you some things that they wouldn't unless you had that attitude. The same goes for this. Um, so you just have to want it and, like, believe it, you deserve it, or that you can accomplish it without it being, like, halfway, like, thinking you're saying it, but do you really believe it?
Do you think that applies to everything in life, not just out of body experiences?
Yeah. Well, not all people and things are created equal. Like, somebody can be very offended if you did something like that, and that wouldn't be a very good teacher. Um, so somebody with, like, maybe their ego is not in the right place, or um, they don't want, because there's a lot of teachers that know very advanced things that never want anybody to excel past them. I'm sure you've met that in all aspects of life. But those are not very good teachers, they're not very good leaders. So the ones that actually do show you things are like, it's not everyone. So it can't be all aspects of life. You have to maybe get lucky a little bit, or just like have it planned out before you incarnate, be in the right place at the right time and all that stuff.
Let's say I was your next door neighbor and I would say, hey, William, I'm going to put an object on my table. And tonight I want you to have an out of body experience and go see what it is so you can tell me tomorrow. Are you so skilled that you can do that?
It's better if the pressure isn't on. So like if it could be like, okay, put it there or put it in your closet or something. And then I'll get to it when I get to it, type of thing. And then you could find yourself in a good position where you're relaxed enough and you remember simultaneously while exiting, oh yeah, this person asked me to do this. Let's try to do that. But it has to be kind of like your first thought. The pressure has to kind of be off. And through that, it can happen. I've definitely done things like that in the past. Like I've done people like that.
Is it pretty common for you that once you get out of your body, you can turn around and look down and see your body laying there?
Yeah, I mean, I've had many out of body experiences when I'm right there. Recently, I exited. This was probably like 2 months ago or something. But I got up, I turned around, I looked at myself, and I could see that I was snoring like really bad, like to the point where like we're talking like sleep apnea snoring, and I was like, wow, I need to go back. And then I just went back, and that was it. Like, so yeah, it could be my first one, very first one. I was right there. I've had many that I'm right there, but sometimes you're not. Sometimes you fall or rise or whatever the case, and you get taken to different places for different reasons.
Can you tell us about some of the places that you have visited while out of the body?
Sure. One of the most diverse ones is a place where they have a lot of these. What's the word for it? It's not avatars. Like symbolized things like multi-headed dragons and lions and things like that, that are just kind of existing, very intelligent. And like the one that I've been to was like on a beach, and I was just trying not to have fear. It's really important not to have fear.
What can you share with us about the future or, what's really going on?
Well, I already said about the thing about the planet kind of just being highly depopulated and used as kind of like a botanical garden.
Are you saying that the planet is now in the action of being depopulated?
No.
Or it has been depopulated? I'm not really sure.
It will be.
It will be depopulated.
That doesn't necessarily mean by the killing off of people. It just means that we are finding ways to live off the planet,
Okay.
and like still kind of in the area, but like using it for a completely different purpose. Which it could be argued that's been happening for hundreds of billions of years, and then it just goes through these cycles. So, but yeah, okay. So future stuff. There's some things that you could practice if you are willing to put in the time to learn how to have out of body experiences. Now, that'll show you future events, and but you have to be able to get into non-physical form. And like I've said it before, like the Om, if you could practice that while you're in non-physical form, it could have profound effects in things like seeing the future. I've seen the furthest I've seen in like a very unbroken chain has been about 3 to 4 weeks. And but there's been like, further areas but with a majorly broken chain. And something that you figure out is that you really can't change anything. And like, even if you want to, like, not really, it'll snap back like a elastic cord or something. Like you can't break it. But one thing you can do let's say you see a week in the future, you know something's going to happen, and you know you can't change it by just doing a bunch of different actions. You could wait to the last possible second. Like say if there was somebody that is going to get hit by a bus in front of you. This is a very dramatic example. But if somebody is, you don't try to change it. You go all the way to the end to when it's just getting ready to happen. Then you pull them back. Now, if you try to do things beforehand, it'll happen one way or the other. But like that's how the future kind of works. There's of course many timelines that go on, but it's very hard to change the future. I would say don't even try. I've had a lot of people just not even want to tell me things because like they didn't want to interrupt the natural course. And I didn't understand it when they wouldn't tell me. And like it's complicated, a little bit complicated to get into that, but I learned over time it's best just to let things be and just worry about yourself.
Have you ever seen extraterrestrials out there? Aliens?
Sure.
What are they doing?
Yeah. Some of them are just observing. Uh, some of them are just very future versions of not just you, but it can be you, of just like, you can say future versions of us later. And some of it is, you know, they occurred a long time ago and now they're just extremely advanced in observing and like they don't have it all figured out either. And then there's some that aren't humanoid looking and are pretty scary sometimes, but they're not actually scary. And I don't interact too much with any that are that have ill intent. It's not as if it doesn't exist, but that isn't something I've been into for quite some time. So what are they doing? Like, I don't have all the answers on that one. I'm not in the government or anything like that. Like,
Some people believe that our whole reality here is a simulation. From what you've seen, do you think there's any truth to that?
it just seems it's overly simplified. Like, sure, it could be a simulation, and it does seem because that we're within a box, within a box, within a box, and that there are programs involved that make things run a very specific way in one box, and then an outer box also does the same thing, and that there are laws and like there's a lot of people and things in place to make sure you don't get out of certain levels of, if you want to call it a simulation or a hologram or whatever, that has the laws that govern it that make everything go the way that it goes. Uh, I don't care if it is, uh, but it seems yes, but also it's overly simplified to say it's a simulation. It's like an organic simulation.
Some of the near-death experiencers wind up in a place that's like a waiting room. Like imagine sitting in a doctor's office or something.
Mhm.
Does that make any sense to you? And if so, where do you think that place is?
Ooh. I would say they have fixed places that are like that, and a lot of it has to do with being able to digest trauma from this life and the trauma of dying, but like trauma from this life, and like you need time to do that. And however, for everybody, it's different. So yeah, it could resemble a doctor's office or a hospital for sure. Um, and then they let you out, right? Kind of like interact in a more vast, fixed place for dead people, for that version of yourself that died, until it gets to a certain level of maturity or whatever, that you're able to like move on to the next phase.
What about a place that's kind of like a train station?
Never experienced that,
Right?
but maybe that's where they got it from Harry Potter.
Good point. The black void. Do you think that's like a space that's outside of all realities or something else?
Yeah, outside of reality. So I guess I could be compared with what you were saying about the train station and what I said about the Harry Potter thing, like a waiting zone. Uh, uh, I've written it into one of the comic books I have coming out because I thought it was necessary. It's kind of complicated to get into it, but it's there, and there. I would say that what it's not a complete void. That there are things that can communicate within. Um, and then there are things I haven't heard about for a long time, in terms of like there'll be like 3 days of blackness during like this transitional period from one era of Earth to the next, and you just kind of have to like wait it out, and that's a void, and people lose their minds during it, and things like that. Or like an ultra super solitary confinement type of thing.
What is your favorite place to go to while exiting the body?
I have some fixed areas that I've created a little bit, and some that were there kind of before me. Uh, like the movie, it's kind of like the movie Inception, where you can build areas and go back to them. So I have some. It's mostly nature, and those are my favorite places. A lot of places I just get taken to, or it's very close to the physical. Then there are those like more astrally type of places where you can continue to go back to, and like you could sit by the same stream, have a conversation with the same person that kind of has been staying there. Yeah, stuff like that, like nature stuff.
How different is out of body traveling from lucid dreaming?
Extremely, extremely. Uh, Lucid dreaming is like you can't trust your surroundings because your subconscious can create anything. When you're having an out of body experience, you turn on the energy body and you disconnect from your physical, and then you're standing there, and then you go like, okay, I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna go out of the house and walk around and experience what's going on as close to the physical in a non-physical way. And then a lucid dream is like kind of chaos. Like you might run into some things that can give you a message within there, but that's something that's way more intelligent than you, that knows what you're going through. How do I get a message through? Okay, I'm gonna be a camel and I'm gonna like run after you or something. Now go look it up and determine what that means and how it's gonna relate to your waking life. So that's something that could happen in a lucid dream that actually makes sense. For the most part, it's just your subconscious creating your entire world. It's a lot of fun, but you can't trust it. Controlling them. However, you can cross over from lucid dreams to not out body experience by realizing that you can, and remembering certain things. Like you could induce the feeling of falling in a lucid dream, and when, like, say, like you close your eyes in a lucid dream, that you remember to do so and fall flat on your face. When you hit the ground, it can turn on the energy body, so you feel like you're being electrocuted in your physical body. You're all the way back in your bedroom, and then through technique, you could disconnect the energy body from the physical body through those series of steps. So that's another reason why the movie Inception was somewhat accurate, even though they reversed that. They said if you create the feeling of falling, that you go deeper. No, that you come up. Like that's how you get up, right? But in reality, when you create the feeling of falling in a lucid dream, you go deeper, like a deeper level of existence, and that can be an out of body experience. But so it sends you all the way back to your physical body, where your energy body's on, and then you disconnect. So these things are interwoven with each other, but it's complicated to explain.
Some of my guests say that every time you go to sleep, you're astral traveling. But from what you're saying, that doesn't appear to be correct.
I think it's overly simplified. You can say that you might be in a non-physical form, but your reality around you isn't real. So you can see people playing out dreams when you're out of body, and what they're doing isn't really happening. It's their subconscious creating their surroundings. So I mean, it's yes and no, and but there are really mature ways or ways of doing this in which you can be sure, and you have to scratch anything that has a break in consciousness when you're in energetic form, because you can't be sure. You could have just created it, and yeah, that's important. The answer to that is yes and no, um, unfortunately. But I would not say, I would not use the term astral for every time that you go to sleep. A lot of it is just you're in repair mode. Like tons of repair mode is happening all the time.
I'm sorry, you said repair mode?
Yeah.
You're repairing your body physically or mentally?
Mentally, energetically. Sometimes you do non-physical practice. Like I could have my energy body overlaying my physical body without leaving and doing repairs on myself. And that could be done consciously or uh, subconsciously, or it could be done like you don't know that you're doing it, or you know exactly what you're doing. And that's the trick, is like being in the driver's seat of these things. And that's why it's a lot more powerful and profound and quicker and effective if you can actually be the one in control of doing it, and not it just like happening, because you can't put your consciousness in the driver's seat. I'm trying to explain this the best I can.
If we go back to your NDE, were you ever clinically dead?
I definitely was, but there's nothing that in which I was in a hospital and they said he's dead. I was just in the middle of the streets, and then all of a sudden, like I was very far away with those people, like I told you, and then all of a sudden I was back, and instead of like groggily getting up, like, oh, what happened? I just stood up, walked away.
At what point did you remember your NDE? Immediately or like the next day?
Yeah, it took time. It took time because I had a physical memory issue that came with the accident. So, like, I mean, the blow on the back of my head, the scar is pretty large, created physical problems with short-term memory for a little while until my brain was able to like rewire itself and remember. In a way, it's yeah.
So are you an author of comic books? Because you mentioned them earlier.
Yeah, I have Quartz Comics and Quartz Force are the name of the comic books coming out. And I've written already a children's book series called Chakra Friends, and I can show it.
Sure.
That's okay. Yeah, this is just an example of the box set.
Oh, wow. Chakra Friends. That's cool.
And here's an example of like a doll.
Oh, wow.
This would be the third eye doll, right? And there's a book dedicated to the third eye in here. It's meant for kids, and there's 7 stories, 7 chakras.
Oh, that's amazing. Are your comic books about near-death experiences?
They are about very fun, obscure, spiritual things that the parents will get very well, and the children probably not so much. But it's more like adventuring and like some things with other planetary stuff, and yeah. So like quartz characters that are disposition and look is based on the type of quartz that they are.
You mean quartz crystals like rose quartz?
Mm-hmm.
You're probably already aware of this, but there are a lot of comics out there, and there are even adult comics. And I think it would be amazing if you could make an adult-based comic on your astral travels. I mean, your out-of-body experiences.
Yeah. Uh, you're the second person to tell me that, and I've thought about it, and I'm trying to get like one thing after another done first. And another thing that I work on is out of Los Angeles. I do some work for at-risk youth, and so it's a nonprofit that we employ at-risk youth, and we basically employ them. They make hot sauce that we give people that donate to the charity, and it's called Rural Community Movement. And we were also making a program that gives them like a level of involvement in community, like not only homeless, but maybe on the verge of homeless. Give them like a sense of community. It's a rite of passage program. And so we're both paying them, having them create things, and have people have something when they donate to the charity. And I could show that as well, if that's okay. Like,
Sure.
I have an example of the hot sauce. This is the verde. So, so they go through the formula, take the right vegetables and whatnot, bottle it, you pay them, and then help them get out of the rut, right? And so that's something that we've been working on a lot. So working with adults, definitely cool. Like, would love to get into that next step of like writing the stories and getting them out to adults. And it could be in comic book form or not. Right now, my mind is in that era of things. And but it'll come when the time is there, and everything else will happen.
Well, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that?
Of course.
What's the best way to reach you?
My website is energywork.com, and then Instagram is energy_work, and those would be the best places. Like Billy at energywork.com.
Before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
I wouldn't worry too much about dying. I wouldn't worry too much about getting stuck, or what comes next, or if this piece of you will have problems moving on, or if there's anything even there, because there definitely is. But there's always help. So no matter what, you will be helped, even if you don't understand what is going on. It's designed to do that. And you don't have anything to worry about. So like, it's that same thing where like, why worry? It'll probably never happen. I mean, yet you will die, but you're not going to like be stuck or something. It's fine.
William, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.